In the small village of Ogwachuku in Delta State, Nigeria, there lived a woman named Achalugo. She claimed to be a prophetess sent by God to heal the sick and bring prosperity to her members. Many people in the village and surrounding areas believed in her powers and flocked to her church for miracles. Achalugo's church was a big, beautiful building with a large auditorium and many rooms for her members to stay in. She sold all sorts of things to her followers, claiming they had healing powers. They were anointing oils, holy waters, my Samuel's apple, and even white handkerchiefs that she claimed could cure any sickness or problem. Many people bought these items hoping to find solution to their troubles. But not everyone was convinced of Prophetess Achalugo's power. A young man named Efe, who lived in the village, had always been skeptical of her claims. He had seen many people spend their money on her miracle products only to remain sick or poor. Efe decided to investigate Prophetess Achalugo's church and find out if she was truly a prophetess or just fake. Efe started by talking to some of Achalugo's members. He asked them about their experiences with her and if they had really received any miracle. Some of them told him that they had been healed of their sicknesses, but others admitted that they had not seen any improvement. Ife also noticed that many of the members seems to be in a trance-like state, repeating phrases like Prophetess Achalugo is the chosen one and she has the power to heal. Ife's suspicions were growing and he decided to take a closer look at the Prophetess Achalugo's church. He snuck in one night, avoiding the guides and making his way to the main auditorium. What he saw shocked him. There were boxes and boxes of anointing oil, holy water, white handkerchief, apples, etc., all with price tags on them. If he realized that Prophetess Achalugo was making a fortune off her members, selling them fake miracles and fake hopes. If he knew he had to expose Achalugo's scam, but he was afraid of what might happen to him. He had heard stories of people who had spoken against her being threatened or even attacked. But if he knew, he couldn't just sit back and do nothing. He decided to gather more evidence and then take his findings to the authorities. As Efe continued to investigate, he discovered that Prophetess Achalugo's hotel was also a big scam. She was charging her members huge amounts of money to stay there, claiming that the hotel had special healing powers. But if he find out that the hotel was just a normal building with no special power at all. He also discovered that Prophetess Achalugo was using the money she made from her members to fund her own lavish lifestyle, and she called herself the billionaire prophetess. If he had enough evidence to take to the authorities, he went to the police station and told them everything he had discovered. The police were shocked and promised to investigate Prophetess Achalugo and her church. Efe was relieved knowing that he had taken the big step towards exposing the truth. But as Efe was leaving the police station, he received a threatening phone call. "You will regret what you have done," a voice said. "Prophetess Achalugo will not be taken down by someone like you." Efe was shaken, but he knew he couldn't back down now. He was determined to see justice served no matter what dangers he could face. Efe tried to brush off the threatening phone calls, but he couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. He decided to be more careful and kept a low profile for the next few days. But he didn't stop investigating Achalugo's activities. He knew that he had to gather more evidences to take her down. One night, Efe decided to sneak into Prophetess Achalugo's hotel to gather more evidence. He made his way to the reception area, trying not to make any noise. As he was searching through the reception's desk, he heard a voice coming from one of the rooms. He slowly made his way towards the room, trying not to make any noise. As he approached the room, he heard Ashalugo's voice shouting and screaming at someone. Ife's heart was racing as he slowly opened the door and peeked inside. What he saw shocked him. Ashalugo was standing over a young girl who was lying on the bed, crying and trembling with fear. Achalugo was holding a small bottle of liquid, shouting and screaming at the girl to drink it. Ife knew that he had to act fast. He slowly backed away from the door. Trying not to make any noise, he quickly pulled out his phone and dialed the police emergency number. As he waited for the police to arrive, Ife couldn't shake off the feeling of anger and disgust. He knew that he had to expose Achalugo's evil activities to the world. He was determined to make sure that she paid for her crimes. The police arrived shortly and Ife led them to the room where Achalugo was holding the young girl captive. The police arrested Achalugo and freed the young girl. Ife was relieved that the girl was saved, but he knew that this was just the beginning. He was determined to make sure that Achalugo faced justice for her crimes. As the news of Achalugo's arrest spread, many of her members were shocked and disappointed. Some of them couldn't believe that their prophetess could be involved in such evil activities. Others were angry and felt betrayed. But Ife knew that he had done the right thing. He had exposed a fake prophetess and brought hope to those who had been exploited by her. But as Ife was celebrating his victory, he received another threatening phone call. "You think you have won," the voice said, "but Achalugo has many members who will not let her go down without a fight. You will regret what you have done." If he was not intimidated, he knew that he had the truth on his side, and he was determined to see justice served no matter what dangers was ahead. If he was not intimidated by the threatening phone calls, he knew that he had done the right thing by exposing Achalugo's scam. He continued to work with the police to gather more evidences against her. As the days went by, more and more people came forward to share their experiences with Achalugo. Some of them told stories of how they have been duped into giving her large sum of money, while others shared stories of how they had been physically and emotionally abused by her. The evidences against Achalugo was mounting, and it seems clear that she would soon be facing justice. But Ife knew that he couldn't let his guard down. He knew that Achalugo still had many members who were loyal to her, and he suspected that they might try to retaliate against him. One night, as Ife was walking home from the police station, he noticed a group of people following him. He quickened his pace, but they kept following him. Suddenly, one of them grabbed him from behind and spun him around. Ife found himself face to face with one Achalugo's most loyal members, a broad-shouldered man with a menacing black look. "You think you can take down Prophetess Achalugo and get away with it?" the man mocked. "You are wrong. We will make sure you pay for what you have done." Ife tried to struggle free, but the man was too strong. Just as it seemed like all was lost, a group of police officers appeared out of nowhere and chased the man away. Ife was shaken but grateful to be alive. The police officers told Ife that they had been following him and seen the man and his friends following him. They promised to increase the security around Ife to protect him from Achalugo's members. Ife was relieved and grateful for the police protection. He knew that he still had a long way to go to bring Achalugo to justice, but he was determined to see it through. He was ready for whatever challenges, knowing that he had the truth and the law on his side. The days that followed were filled with tension and uncertainty. Ife's testimony against Achalugo had sparked a firestorm of controversy, with many of her members denying the allegations and threatening to take revenge on Ife. Despite the danger, Ife remained steadfast in his determination to see justice served. He worked closely with the police to gather more evidence against Achalugo, and he even helped to identify some of her accomplices. As the case against Achalugo continued to build, Efe began to receive more and more threatening messages. Some of them were anonymous, while others were from known members of Achalugo, but Efe refused to back down, even when the threats became more and more intense. One night, as Efe was walking home from the police station, he noticed a strange car following him. He quickened his pace, but the car kept following him. Suddenly, the car turned around to the side of the road, blocking Ife's path. A group of men jumped out of the car, their faces twisted with anger and hatred. Ife knew that he was in grave danger. He tried to run, but the men were too fast. They caught him and began to beat him, shouting insults and curses as they did so. Ife tried to defend himself, but he was outnumbered and defeated. Just as it seemed like all was lost, a group of police officers arrived on the scene, sirens blaring and lights flashing. The men who were attacking Ife fled in terror, abandoning their car and leaving Ife battered and bruised but alive. The police officers rushed Ife to the hospital where he received treatment for his injury. Ife was shaken but grateful to be alive. He knew that he had come close to death, but he also knew that he couldn't give up now. He had to see justice served, no matter what the cost. As Ife laid in the hospital bed, he couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. Would Achalugo be brought to justice, or would she manage to escape punishment once again? Ife didn't know, but he was determined to find out. The days passed slowly for Ife as he recovered from his injuries. But despite the physical pain, his determination to see justice served only grew stronger. He spent hours going over the evidence he had gathered, looking for any weakness in the case against Achalugo. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. Ife was nervous but resolute as he made his way to the courtroom. Achalugo was already there, surrounded by her lawyers and a small group of loyal members. The trial was a dramatic and emotional affair. Ife testified about his experiences with Achalugo, and several other witnesses came forward to share their own story of exploitation and abuse. Achalugo's lawyer did their best to discredit the witnesses and cast doubt on the evidence, but Ife's testimony was compelling, and other witnesses corroborated his story. As the trial drew to a close, the judge delivered a stern warning to Achalugo. "You have been accused of serious crimes," he said. "If you are found guilty, you will face severe punishment." Achalugo's face fell, but she remained aggressive. "I am innocent," she declared. "I will never admit to crime I did not commit." The judge nodded gravely. "Very well," he said. "The verdict will be delivered tomorrow. In the meantime, you will remain in custody." As the courtroom blew up into chaos, Ife felt a sense of relief washed over him. He had done it. He had brought Achalugo to justice. But as he turned to leave the courtroom, he caught a sight of Achalugo's face. Her eyes were blazing with anger and hatred, and Ife could sense the evil emanating from her. He shivered. Despite the heat of the day, he knew that this was far from over. Achalugo would stop at nothing to exert her revenge, and Ife was her number one target. The next day, the judge delivered his verdict. Achalugo was found guilty of multiple counts of frauds, exploitation, and abuse. She was sentenced to life in prison. and her assets were seized to compensate her victims. Ife was overjoyed when he heard the news. He had done it. He had brought Achalugo to justice, and he had freed his community from her deceits. As he walked out of the courtroom, Ife was met with cheers and congratulations from his friends and family. They had all been supportive of him throughout the ordeal, and he was grateful for their love and encouragement. The days that followed were a lot of activity. Ife worked with the authority to help Achalugo's victims recover their experiences. He also helped to establish a new community center in Ogwachukwu, where people could come together to support and uplift each other. As for Achalugo, she was taken away to begin serving her sentence. Ife never saw her again, but he heard that she had become a shadow of her former self. She had lost everything that had ever mattered to her power, her influence, and her freedom. Ife, on the other hand, had gained something much more valuable. He had gained the respect and admiration of his community, and he had gained a sense of purpose and fulfillment. He knew that he had made a difference in the world, and that knowledge filled him with joy and contentment. Years later, if he would look back on his experiences with Achalugo with a sense of pride and accomplishment, he had faced his fears and stood up for what was right, even when it was hard, and in the end, he had emerged victorious. Thanks for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Turn on your bell notification so you get notified when a new story like this drops. Please drop your opinion in the comment section as well, and see you in our next video.